I submit first that there is a profound difference between power and greatness. Power, neither inherently good or bad, when properly understood, is the ability to achieve purpose and muster the strength to create lasting change. Greatness, on the other hand, is determined by service. What begins a great nation is its ability to harness power from its dominant culture to create a single gesture of good, a genuine act of service, co-legislated with and on behalf of all others, so that in every institution of its society, there is an ethic for collective thriving. As I reflect on the history of our nation, tracking it against the state of our current MAGA condition, I arrive to a single truth. America is a powerful nation, but it is not, nor has it ever been, a great nation. Entrenched in America's endeavor for greatness is a carefully systematized lineage of power that is often linked to a recurring compromise of ethics. This ethical compromise is a historically fixed and bogus idea of cultural supremacy. In this lethally protected ecosystem, whiteness clings to the rigidness of an idea where in value and shared identity, it is superior to all other cultures. Culture always wins. And I know that countercultural ideologies will always constitute the demand for the prevailing culture to rise up and protect its way of thriving by any means necessary whenever it feels threatened. Hence, the reason why gatherings of peaceful protesters in support of the movement for Black lives and Black liberation are met with horrific militancy and categorized as thugs. And in stark retrospect, on one of the most frightening days in U.S. history, as a mob of white terrorists stormed the U.S. Capitol, minimal arrests are made, little effort is given to divert the attack, and all parties involved are seen as being patriotic. Therefore, show me any American institution forged by the ideals of a dominant white culture, and I'll show you systems that are mass-produced to disseminate imbalances of power. This is the America we know. In this America, while no longer blocked from the pursuit of happiness by geographical markers of overt practices of subjugation posted on signs stating for whites only, living while Black, breathing while Black has become a gradual yield into a more evolved reality of segregation and even more hostile mocking of Blackness in social, political, and economic spheres, which are in equal parts subtle and overt. The big Black man or the angry Black woman or the unkept ethnic hair. In this America, moved by southern winds, strange fruit is no longer found hanging from the poplar tree, but rather Black bodies are being gunned down on the well-lit avenues of the inner city. America, the most powerful country on earth, is changing, but certainly not for greatness' sake. And so it is then that we witness generation after generation of people standing in long and exhaustive lines at the bank of justice to retrieve what has been promised, leaning into the possibilities of obtaining what is fixed position right before our eyes, like dangling fruit, siblinghood, mechanically fastened to and bound by the withering mires of wrongful house seizures, unjust arrests and prison sentences, racial gaslighting and redlining, all working counter-American creed to suggest perhaps that all men are not created equally. Tired and weary, pulling together what little is left of a stripped selfhood and robbed identity, pressing toward the margin, governing poverty and material prosperity, seeking to cash a check there. We are told by persons who seem at times to have vested interest in guarding the coils of injustice that the promissory notes obtained and presented are of no good. Black Lives Matter. No good. Equal access to healthcare. No good. Equitable access to education and capital. No good. Yet we know that the vault of justice is and has always been sufficiently funded, that there is enough. Therefore, In a refusal to believe that Lady Justice is tapped out, we must proceed to direct our attention toward the signer. Perhaps we should consider that those who forge our legislation and who simultaneously co-sign on the injustices against Black bodies are truly in the very nature of their beings fraudulent. Fraudulent are the persons who are silent and inanimate to the horrific violence of police brutality against Black bodies in America. Fraudulent are the persons who perpetuate systems of racial segregation in any form to appease the comforts of race and cultural supremacy. Fraudulent are the persons sustaining willfully the discriminatory practices of refusing persons of color any service of good and inflicting misogynistic emotional abuse. Fraudulent are the persons who attempt to disparage, suppress, and refuse us our right to vote. In the wake of a just redistribution of power in our nation's capital, we forge ahead, refusing to give America license to return to business as usual. The promise of real democracy must happen now. The move towards equity, equality, and access must happen now. Clinging with a fierce and urgent hope of witnessing the emergence of a true racial justice, we mark today as yet another beginning to assert together a more creative protest, that even while adverse days are certain to lie ahead, we deposit our faith in eternal possibility. And as we hold space here together, standing tall for liberty and for justice for all, finding ourselves in a conjoined struggle of destiny that is held up by a single measure of our collective faith, a conviction that is not only imaginative of freedom, but also marches ahead with a strength that is truly capable of leveling the hills to the valley and sinking mountains into the sea. We move towards exacting from the rubble stones of hope, and we take our aim toward the dream of beholding a true great America.